October numbers are out for our local housing market, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Allen County. So we're going to look at October's numbers, but more importantly, we're going to look at what that really means as far as the health and status of the real estate market as a whole. Stay tuned.
I keep it real. I keep it real. I keep it real. Just keep it real.
Hey guys, it's Sam Hartman, keeping it real estate here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And as always, I'm here to bring you the context and clarity that you need to be confident consumers in the world of real estate. And we got October numbers out. Now, when we get month by month data, it's always lagging. So we don't get it till about the middle of the following month. So the numbers we're talking about today is not November, but it's actually October of 2025 data. And we're going to start with inventory because since the pandemic, inventory has been really a huge key indicator, a huge driver in the real estate market, or really what I should say is the lack of inventory has been a huge indicator and a huge driver in the real estate market. And so looking at October of 2025, inventory is actually up 34% from October of last year. That's 1,166 active listings this October. Now, those numbers might not mean a lot to you, but you might look at that percentage and think that's a pretty big jump. Certainly percentage-wise, it is, but we're also starting from a very low standpoint from where we were post-pandemic. You got to remember, when the pandemic hit, not only did listing inventory fall off the face of the earth because no one knew what was going to happen, but quickly after that, as the market began to catch fire and the speed of the market moved very quickly, homes that were listed for sale never got even into the inventory data because they were being sold so quickly. So we have been seeing slower, longer days on market. We've been seeing as that sales cycle takes a little bit longer, the inventory begins to grow as well. And here's a great number to put next to it and really consider how that's changing the market. And that's new listings. So if inventory is up 34% in October, new listings are only up 12%. So the inventory that we saw rise in October was not because of 34% more new listings that came to the market. That actually a big bulk of that inventory was coming from stagnant inventory, homes that were maybe listed the month prior and are still on the market going into October. And we're going to see some of that data, some of that reasoning when we look at the median days on market for October as well. Now let's look at closed sales. Closed sales in October were down a little bit for the seasonality of October, but year over year, we are up 3%, which is promising. The past 2 years were really depressed years in total volume of sales and transactions. A lot of buyers on the sidelines. A lot of people, sitting on their hands, kind of waiting to see economically what happens. People holding on tight to their 3% interest rates of the homes that they already own. So that's created a lock-in effect, but we are seeing that soften a little bit, 3% rise year over year in transactions, which is promising. And if we look at kind of the typical seasonality of October, we are trending above what's typical for October there. So that's a great sign as well. Another good sign are the pending contracts we see hitting in October. Those are actually up 8% year over year. And even more exciting and more valuable data that comes from Housing Wire, they're tracking week by week pendings, and they're tracking it more actively and live. So they're getting the current data week by week. They're not having to wait for the month to pass and then look back to what was. But we're actually seeing in November right now, the last 2 weeks have saw a great amount of increases in purchase applications. So that's buyer demand coming to lenders, applying for mortgages, applying for pre-approvals, showing interest in purchasing homes. But we're also seeing a large increase in home sales, in pending home sales over the last 2 weeks, actually up 15.36% in the month of November so far. So that's a really, really promising increase. So we don't see that strong of a number, a double-digit increase necessarily in the month of October. But if Fort Wayne's market is trending similarly to the national average, we should see a double-digit increase in pending home transactions in the month of November when those sales numbers come out. Now, one of the big reasons I feel like we are seeing an increase in the sales numbers, overall transactions, and pending home sale numbers is because we're getting some more consistency in mortgage rates. We got mortgage rates down to a yearly low at about 6.13%, and they've been bouncing back and forth to about 6.3, 6.4%, but staying under that 6.5 mark there. This time last year, interest rates were beginning to rise closer to 7% again, but we're having some more stability in rates right now. Granted, the government shutdown actually helped keep rates stable because there was a lot of government data that wasn't available or coming out. So everyone was just kind of holding pace, staying still, keeping things as they are. So if the market can keep hold of some consistency in interest rates, they don't need to come down substantially, but if we can keep them below 6.5%, if we can push them down a little bit closer to 6%, it's showing really positive signs and indicators for buyers in the market and how that traffic is coming to the market. So that is going to be a key thing to continue to monitor, is those purchase applications, those pending home sales, how those are growing going into 2026. And I think as long as we keep consistency in those interest rates, we should still be seeing some good data there going into 2026. So I touched on the median days on market, and for the month of October, the median days on market was 20 days, which is up 46%. Now, 20 days actually doesn't sound all that bad, but with the speed and pace of the post-pandemic market that we saw in 2020, 21, 22, the market has shifted. And so one of the key things I always like to look at is not just what our market's days on market are, but if I'm preparing to list a home for a seller, I want them to understand what expectations are. So I'm looking at the average days on market based off of comparable properties. I'm looking at average days on market for their specific neighborhood or their specific zip code. And I'm running what's called an absorption rate, which is a calculation that shows how many competing homes are on the market, how many homes on average sell per month, and so what the amount of homes being absorbed by buyers in today's market actually is. And so the absorption rate is typically higher than what the average days on market are. It's a great way to qualify expectations for a seller, because I know a lot of sellers still have in their mind the speed and the pace of that post-pandemic real estate market of 2021, 22, and that's just not where we're at anymore. So getting expectations in line with what the market is and how it's operating today is extremely important, and something that really we look at on a case-to-case basis based off of the neighborhood, the zip code, the home itself, and trying to, help manage and create those expectations for a seller. The median sale price for October actually stayed pretty flat, which is not necessarily a bad sign because it's pretty typical to see seasonality changes this time of year. A lot of times people will hear maybe that price is appreciated by a certain percentage, but it's not like you get to the end of the year and you just say, yep, homes went up in value that much. There's actually seasonality involved. And so we actually start to see seasonality drop in October. And then we actually tend to see November, December, January, and February even see slight price declines compared to some of the stronger selling months in the rest of the year. So it's not just a straight line of appreciation. If you're a buyer and you're looking for the best buying dynamics, you should be looking for a home in October, November, December, January. This is when you're going to see the softest pricing and the most motivated sellers in today's market. So that's something to consider for home buyers out there. But don't worry, because year-to-date prices in Fort Wayne, Indiana are trending up. We're up just over 2%, which is pretty close to the national average. There are markets all across the country right now that are seeing price declines, but there's a good chunk, and predominantly the Northeast and the Midwest are still seeing price appreciation. Now, this is a great number to see, that prices are still appreciating, but not appreciating so quickly that it's going to continue to put affordability constraints on our market. So as we see price increases begin to slow down and normalize a bit, which is anywhere from 2 to 5%, that's going to be good for the affordability for buyers getting into the market, because they're going to be able to plan budgets, save for their budget, and create the financial picture that they need to then step into the housing market when the time is right for them. And last but not least, list price to sale price ratio. So we're actually seeing for the month of October, sellers are getting 96% of their asking price when they sell their home. And this is down 1%. So again, this is another sign, another dynamic that is showing that buyers have a bit more leverage in today's market than they have in years past. So a lot of times people will ask, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? And there's never a blanket yes or no answer for you. But I can say that buyers are seeing more leverage in today's market than in years past. So that could be a dynamic that if you are taking steps to prepare and get ready to buy a home, and if you're wondering, is there a specific day, week, or month that I should pull the trigger, ultimately it's going to come down to finding the right house and the right property. But the seasonality of the slower winter season and the softer pricing could be a great dynamic for you as a home buyer. So that's where Fort Wayne is at for the month of October. We are right around the corner from holiday season, so I hope you're excited to celebrate the Thanksgiving and holiday season with your family here in Fort Wayne. I hope to see you out and about looking at the Christmas lights around town, whether it be Blue Jacket, Festival of Lights by the zoo, or heading downtown for the Festival of Lights the night before Thanksgiving. That is one of my favorite traditions and holidays in Fort Wayne. So thank you guys for keeping it real estate with me. If you have a question or comment on some of these data lines, make sure you shoot me a comment. If you found this video helpful or informative, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel, and do me a favor and pass this video to someone that could use this information going into the holiday season. Thanks for keeping it real estate with me today, guys, and I'll see you next time.